Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draw odds are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. Remember, when you become a member of GoHunt.com/insider, you're going to get a $50 gift card to Go Hunt Gear Shop. What's in the gear shop? The best gear that you can buy for hunting the West. All in all, if you're hunting out West in 2018, GoHunt.com/insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Hey, folks, welcome back to Whitetail Rendezvous, special edition with Rackology. We're heading up to Eric and Jason's shop up there in Loup City, Nebraska, and this is the final segment of Food Plots, and we're going to talk about planting 365, and that kind of encompasses everything we talked about with these guys this week. And, we started off with the land management, looking at the land, getting hard eyes on it, fresh set of glasses, however you want to call it, and then figuring out where we're going to do things. And then we talked about the food plots and the seed, what they are, what they're not, and what they can't do. Now, we're going to wrap it all up into a 365-day planting and growing session, if you will. So, guys, let's bring forth some knowledge and share. And we did in the break we just had. We just talked about does are stressed, and I threw in my 2 cents. The doe is bred in November 10th. She goes through December, January, February, March. Then she's sometime in the springtime she's going to have the fawn. And the better you can help them carry that fawn, the better deer herd you have. And that's what this is all about, is helping deer become healthy deer, liking your place to live on, and living there 365. So, guys, take it away.
All right. Well, you hit it right on the head. I mean, there's first key in planning a year-round program, whether it be feeding or food plots. When we talk about the land management, we kind of go year over year. We don't just do this year and we're done. We'll see you next year and we'll just start a new game plan. Knowing the life cycle of what you're hunting or what you want out there is very important. I mean, Jason has taught me so much with his knowledge of not only biology, but in specific with deer herd development and deer herd health. I've learned, by just soaking in like a sponge next to him, hearing him talk to people and just asking questions, but knowing he knows really well that life cycle of a doe, the life cycle of a buck, and where you're going to be able to take the stress off of those animals. And like we were talking before, if there's more of a visual key to understand and see, the stresses that these wild animals go through on a given year, because every year is not the same. On a dry year versus a wet year versus a cold winter year where you've got 20 snowfalls and 40 inches of snow. Those deer are out there. They don't get to go inside and relax and refresh and regroup for the next day like we do. But knowing that life cycle of the animal is huge when it comes to planning 365 year-round stuff. And, a lot of people will see deer out there and not know how much stress that they've got on them. And they might just say, oh, they're eating out there. Look at all of them out there. They're just walking around and enjoying themselves, and they're fine. I don't need to do anything. Well, looking at trail camera pictures from closer than 50 to 100 yards, you're going to start picking up, like Jason has showed me, some things to key in on, okay, is that doe, is she, she's got, what we don't know about the deer. There's a lot of times they have twins and triplets, and that's a lot of stress and vitamin and mineral and protein that doe has got to do to get to that fawn, whether it be a fawn that's a doe or a fawn that's a buck. And if you want them bucks to develop and to be their genetic potential, they need to hit the ground running, and they need to be efficient. So a lot of times the food plots and what you have on your land and water, areas that they could go in and drink on a daily basis. And then also the feed side of it, that's important to know what's out there naturally and what you could supplement them with. So I guess that's a key, a huge part. And I guess, and going into planning, like my grandpa always said, like everybody's grandpa said, I think, measure twice and cut once, or, you need to have a good Matic and Wolvik and a good garage key. And so when I asked him, I said, well, what's a Matic? Well, that's a hammer. What's a Wolvik? Well, that's a pencil. Polish. It's Polish for that. And he says, well, what's a garage key? He says, well, that's what you open the garage with. And I said, oh, okay. Now I know. But the planning is, you got one time to do it. Just like I tell the farmers around here, they want to plant too early. They want to plant corn too early. They're looking at a calendar. When it comes to planting, I wish, when it comes to planting seeds in the ground, that we could throw the calendar away. We need to know where our soil temperatures are, and because you only have one time to do it. And if you do it a second time, it gets more expensive and less productive. You do it a third time, and it's probably not going to be productive at all, and it's going to be a lot more expensive. So you have one time to make this food plot shine. So do your homework and or call us and say, when should I plant this? Okay, where's your soil temperature? Well, I don't know. Well, you can go get a thermometer at Walmart for $1. That it's just ground thermometer. You can stick it in the ground and we're going to plant that seed, so 1 inch to 2 inches, and know exactly. Give it 5 minutes, read it. They make digital ones, so it's something real simple. Will really help you. If you till the ground, measure your soil temperature after you till it. Don't do it before you till it, because it's going to warm it up when the sunlight hits it. So there's a lot of things that go into planning, and
soil temperature we're looking at.
Soil temperature, what you want for food plots, normally, unless you're frost seeding or doing something, that there's some species that you could plant in the middle of winter and they're fine, they're viable until the temperature reaches like 50 degrees, then they start growing. Not all plants can do that. Normally you want, 55 degree temperature in your ground, 50, 55 with a good 10-day forecast. You don't want to sit there and go into soil, oh, it's 50 degrees. And then you plant and you look at the 10-day forecast and they're calling for snow. They're calling for cold, wet rain. You're going to drive that soil temperature right back down pretty quickly. It takes a lot less time to cool the soil off than it does to raise the temperature. You usually want that about 55 degrees and a good 10-day forecast to start planning when to food. And like I said, a lot of people just pick a date on a calendar like, well, I'm just going to plant my food plot April 15th. April 15th, I've seen snow that's 1.5 feet on the ground. So every year is different. And I've seen Aprils where it's been 80 degrees on the 15th in perfect conditions. So you just want to really time it right and don't feel like you're going to get rushed in. Well, I only got this weekend to do it. It might be worth it to try to really bust your butt and try to, if it's going to be the following weekend, it's going to be a better scenario to go into, do it that following weekend. Do what you can to do that.
For me, kind of getting back to, what you kind of started talking about with the does, and the bucks. If you're trying to grow a really healthy deer, you really can't think about what am I going to feed them in this small time frame. It goes into not only planting 365, but planning 365. And that boils down to, let's say the rut, for example. I've seen this just in the last how many years, game camera pictures, watching the deer, they've been using our Rackology products. And one thing I can say is if the deer are getting the proper nutrition, so if the bucks and does are really healthy when they're breeding, so the sperm and the egg is at its prime, it's the best nutrients that they can get. If the sperm and egg are the healthiest possible when conception takes place, that fawn is going to be much better off genetics are going to be maximized that much more versus the fawn that maybe mom and dad didn't have a really good start. They didn't have the proper nutrition. So we had the same sperm and egg, but in a weaker capacity because of the lack of nutrition. We could birth those at the same date. Theoretically, we could do this. This fawn that was conceived with proper nutrition is going to be so much better off, obviously, than the fawn that wasn't. I mean, we see this in humans. I mean, as a teacher, I see this with the different students when we talk about students that have got learning disabilities, students that are, all gamuts. And sadly enough, a lot of times it goes down to what did their parents do? What were their parents doing before they were conceived? A lot of that goes into the health of the child. Deer are no different. They got proper nutrition before the rut and throughout the rut and after the rut. It's just a no-brainer. You're going to have healthier deer. And so, with planting these food plots, if you do it right and can do the proper amount that, you can do, whether it's the amount of acres that's an inhibiting factor for you, or it's, the dollar amount that's the inhibiting factor. If you do the best you can do for those deer with your plots, you're going to notice the returns on it. I mean, that's just plain and simple. And, and kind of to kickstart another conversation, because I'm going to go to him on this one. You go out there to get ready to start planting, and, I'd mentioned this in the last segment, you want to find out about your soil health. Soil sampling, if you can do it, is really awesome as far as figuring out what you're starting off with a base. And I guess my question for him, because maybe some of the listeners are going to be wanting to know this, is, what pH, what is pH? What pH am I looking for? Once my pH is right, what are some other things that are going to, kind of things that I'm going to look at before I even want to put seed in the ground and put you guys as fertilizer down? What is soil? What am I doing?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess, talking about soil health, we talked about it in that, second section of this, but a lot of people don't know what is soil health. Is it just a thing tells me, yeah, it's good or yeah, it's bad? It kind of takes a trained eye to look at the soil sample results and know what might be going on. And sorry, I've been using the word laboratories, and this is just I don't know if you can quite see that, but it just has all the breakdowns. This is just my field north of town here, and there's pH. And if you have a low pH, which is something under 6.5 percent, then you're going to have adding some lime, get that pH level back up. There's soluble salts. There's organic matter, which is huge. Carryover nitrogen, what you're going to have in all your nutrients, your macros and micros with phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, molybdenum, manganese, zinc, iron, copper. There's just a whole gamut that you can learn. And when I get samples back, depending on what crop's going in there, I really go in here and I dive into it and figure out, where the optimal levels should be for what they want. And so what the optimum levels are going to be for corn is not going to be the same optimum levels for a food plot. And so,
what's low pH do to a plant?
Well, when you look at pH is anything under 6.0 to like 5.5 to 6.0, I should say, will take your overall performance or production of a crop down by 10%. And then you get lower than 5.5, so it's like 4.5, 5 to 5.5, I should say, takes about another 10. So you're down 20% production. So you can't expect to go plant something on a really low pH. It's 4.5 or 5 and expect to have really good luck. The optimum pH you want in your soil is, 6.7 to 7. That's where you're going to have 100% potential of production, whether it be corn, food plot, or anything like that. Now, there are some species that do just fine on a more of a wide range of pHs, but you want to try to get that honed in as best as possible.
Those low soil pH, is that how it hurts a plant? Is it because it inhibits nutrient uptake?
Yes. Yeah, it ties up things. Low pH basically ties up some of your macros and micros, and it doesn't let the soil metabolize them and break them down as fast. And something that goes along with pH is your soil CECs, which is a sum of your cations that transfer a little particle of nitrogen from here to here, which looks like a long ways, but in the soil's eye, it's really small. So if you always thought about, well, if I put a little droplet, whether it be liquid or a granule of dry nitrogen, how does it get from there to my soil roots? Well, a lot goes with your soil CECs, how it can transfer the broken down nitrogen from here to that root where the root intercepts it and takes it in, and that's, I'm getting probably people falling asleep here with soil health, but I guess my only thing is when it comes to the planting size, when you're planning your food plots, your soil will tell you a lot if you're going to be successful or not. A lot of times I'll go out and we'll pick 7 different spots. Hey, guys got a quarter ground, and I'm thinking this is where we picked on our planning discovery phase of the whole thing. We pull samples there. We send them to the lab, and 2 weeks later I call them back. I says, well, you might as well go put a big X on plot 1 and plot 5, but the other 3 we could do some work with, and they're going to be more economical. So that could be a ruling thing where if people don't take a pH or a soil test and the pH is off, a lot of times on pH you could tell by the color of the soil if you're going to have a problem or not. The more you've got really light, like a piece of paper soil, and you've got really dark soil like this mouse here, and those two are not very good. You ever say the darker the soil, the better. You want right in the mix in between, a brownish to a blackish soil. That's going to have probably because if it's too dark black and it's really going to have a lot of high organic matter and peat moss, and you're just going to have the pHs are going to be really acidic. You have a really light color soil, a really light clay looking soil. It's going to be really alkaline. It's going to be really high in pH, which can affect it just like low pH can. You get upwards of 8%, 8.5%. It's going to hinder yourself too. So what I tell in the planning phase, for $13 for one sample to send in, it's worth it. I mean, if you're going to spend $80 on or $150 on seed, why not spend $13 on a soil sample? So that's just, it goes along with, not only where should I plant it, but when you put a soil test with maybe a geographical area where you're catching the right amount of sunlight and you're getting some subsoil irrigation, or you got some good holding capacity of water in your sample, and that's just as important.
And that's where tie that back into the first section of our series, land management. I mean, when you walk your land, listeners, you paid somebody to walk your land, get eyes on your land, do all this stuff. Every place you're considering putting in a food plot, spend the $13. I mean, you're already in, so you might as well go all in, and then it eliminates any questions, because you say, oh, this place right here, I can come to the backside of ridge, the wind's here, I can slip in, great place for a stand, and that's where I want the food plot, and then it won't grow, as we talked earlier in the show, you're trying to grow, brassicas on dolomite, and ain't going to work.
One thing I found out, though, is what can be a side detriment of that happening. I've always come to the reasoning that the plants you want to grow and thrive in an area that you don't do your homework on won't thrive, but weeds will. And so if you till up an area and you just don't do a soil sample, you till it up, you plant it, nothing comes up, something's going to have to come up, unless it's just barren soil that maybe has a much deeper issue going on. When you till that up and you take all the coverage off of there, and the pHs or some of the soil fertility is wrong, and it doesn't come up, and all of a sudden it comes midsummer and you got weeds galore. Now some weeds are beneficial for some species, but you got the weeds you don't want, and you end up having to spray it or till it again. And do your due diligence and just do the soil test, because before you go ripping up a piece of ground.
Yeah, there's just no question about it. Now, folks, takes a doe about a fawn to come about 201 days. So November, December, you can count it out. But all through that carrying time, that's, as we talked about before, that's the most critical time for that fawn. And that's why, planting 365 is becoming more and more important. No matter how little you think you're doing a lot. Your thoughts?
Well, for me, I originally started to come up with these products just for ourselves, the one thing I looked at was not so much as, how big of a buck can I grow? Granted, we all want to, possibly shoot a nice buck. I mean, that's a lot of hunters are looking at the antlers. But for me, as a biologist, common sense would tell you if you have the most healthiest does and fawns possible, it's just a no-brainer that your bucks are going to naturally, you're going to, the point is we want to maximize their genetic potential. The bucks maximize the genetic potential of does. And so by creating a year-round possibility for feeding, the bucks, the deciding factor on the antlers is throughout the winter months and into the spring months. The deciding factor on how healthy them fawns are going to be when they're born is those winter months and what they got to eat, what type of cover they've got. We've got a bedding cover that we've got on our website that, places where people don't have a bedding spot on their ground, they can provide that for the deer. It gives them a place to take shelter, especially if you can get it someplace next to where we got water. There is some food source in that plot as well with some of the other plants we got in there, but you couple that with a good healthy plot and either one, make it big enough that it's going to last into the winter months, or B, you fence it so that you take down the fence so it's optimum for hunting, and you might put it back up to salvage what remains so that they've got something to graze on over the winter months. It just depends on how much ground you have, how much you're able to plant. There's other things that go into planting. I mean, if you go into a little area into the trees and you think this is a nice place for a plot and I'm going to plant it, you kind of, figure out your directions a little bit in the trees and think about where the sun is. Those of you that put out game cameras realized after not too long that you don't point your game cameras east and you don't point your game cameras west unless you're in a really shaded spot. Otherwise, the sun gets sun flash, right? Same way with the food plot. When you're in there, you know where the sun's coming up and going down. If the plot's getting way too much sun because it's way out in the open, or it's in the trees and it's too dark, and you got to pay attention to how much you might have to cut some trees back even further than where your plot sits, to open up. Like on my, mine was a 1/8 acre plot. I probably had, I bet you, maybe 10 to 20 yards ish of open outside the plot before it got to the first trees, just to make sure that I had, X amount of daylight, hitting it. Not only that, when you do go to cut down some of those trees, think about what you're doing when you're cutting them. You can hinge cut them, or cut them and drag them into certain areas. The one place where we're hunting at, there's so many ways that these deer come through the trees to the plot that you can help to kind of funnel them through an area to your plot. So not only are you thinking about the deer's health when you're doing these plots, but you're also thinking about strategics as far as where these deer are going to be coming from. Then kind of back to the health aspect. This is my sporadicness, I guess, you have to put up with, is those fawns in the spring and summer months when they're needing milk. They're needing the nutrition. They're needing it now. Those bucks that are growing the antlers may have kind of been decided back in February, March, April, but they still need to replace on their skeleton now what they're pulling off to grow the antlers. Those fawns, those does, they need to replace the nutrients and the minerals that they're taking out of their body to put into the milk for those fawns. So they need that over the summertime. And so it's not just let's plant it a little bit here and it's a one and done and then we forget about it. Those deer need different nutritional requirements throughout the year. And, if you plant a monoculture, mono means one. So it's a one type of plant. It'd be like planting all corn or all soybeans. When you plant a monoculture, those plants are good, a certain time of the year. If you're planting plots that have got a number of different varieties, it's kind of like they can go to the store and they can choose. This week, I kind of like these plants. This week, I kind of like those plants. The nutritional value is different, depending on the time of the year with those plants. And so, can you get by just filling up a little 1/4 acre and 1/8 acre plot? And, let's say like you just want, we've got guys that want to just throw out our Nebraska mix. They don't do the soil sample. Can you get away with that? Sure you can. Not everybody's going to go out and buy the soil sample because they might think, well, this is too small to do it. In the long run, is it going to be better? Of course, because if you're going to continue to plant that area, put it this way, anything that you can do, that you want to do, that you can afford to do, whatever, for a plot is not going to be for naught, in the future. It's going to boil down to, what do you want to see on that ground in a year or 2 or 5 years? So,
this last half hour just really flew by, and we gave a lot of, not just biscuits and gravy either, meat and potatoes. And folks, Rackology can reach by how?
Our email is probably one of the best ways to get a hold of us, just because, we're both at work during the day and whatnot, but it's Rackology LLC at gmail.com. Instagram and Facebook, guys that follow us, they often message us through there. The problem with messaging through there is notifications don't always go through. And so, there's been times where it's a few days later that I noticed made messages on Instagram, and I apologize, and they're usually good with it and everything. It's just, email's probably the best. Our website, you can get in contact with us through there, but I'd say email's the best. And if we need to, we can always follow up with a phone call,
Mm-hmm.
Our website's rackology.org.
So, guys, Eric and Jason, thanks so much for spending a couple hours with Whitetail Rendezvous and bringing this information to our listeners. And, we got to get smarter, one, with our dollar, two, with our time, and really consider being, 365 hunters, as I call it, because, all throughout the year, we're helping our deer herd grow. And that's what I want to help all you listeners to do. So, guys, on behalf of thousands of listeners across North America, thanks for being part of this special series on land management and food plots.
All right,
thanks for having us, Bruce.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Hey, folks, a special edition of Whitetail Rendezvous is coming. I've asked 3 companies, Land & Legacy, Rackology, and Grandpa Ray Outdoors, to be part of a series on land management and food plots. So the next few episodes, about 18 of them, in fact, are going to be about land management or food plots. Why? Because people have been asking me a lot of questions. So I went out and chatted with some guys, and Adam Keith and Matt Dye from Land & Legacy is joining the crew. And at Rackology, we have Jason Obermiller and Eric Fitzgerald. And rounding out the team is Grandpa Ray Outdoors with John O'Brien. Each of them is going to bring a different flavor on what is land management, what are food plots, why you need them, the pros and cons. So listen up to this next series, and I sure hope you like them. If you like them, let me know. If you don't like them, let me know what I can do better. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.